Hello, everyone. This is Archis, and I've come to engulf your imaginary world in flames. But for now, it has been brought to my attention that notable colonizer, imperialist simp, and Islamofascist GDF has recently lost all shame and has come out with possibly the most biased, myopic, and atrocious Islamist propaganda about the Kashmir conflict today. But why take my word for it? Let's get into what he actually says. I'm not sure why you're complaining when it seems like your fellow black stone kissers. The story actually begins 4 centuries earlier, and it was not the Sikh Empire, it was the Samanwaliya dynasty. False rumors about him being on the charisma of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who engaged in substantial misconduct and employed many non-Sikhs in his administration, like Mirza Ghulam Ahmed's grandfather and Nautan Lal. They did not sell it in Pakistani prison, clearly states the British a similar charge. All land between the Sindh and the Beas rivers, 10 million rupees as war reparations from the Sandhanwaliya dynasty, and that Gulab Singh Jamwal was appointed as the negotiator by the court of the Sandhanwaliya dynasty in the Lahore Peace Conference following their defeat to the British. All territory acquired by the House of Jamwal was a reward for taking part in the negotiations. I'm sorry. Land reforms first take place under Dogra rule. Road access was increased, as well as ease of doing business. In fact, the first college, first boys' college, first girls' college were all built in the valley by the Dogra rulers. Sheikh S.A. writes experienced and trusted law officials were placed in charge of key departments like the audits and accounts, the Dakshal, the commissariat, and police. The Maharaja, in order to relieve the peasants of serious injustice, undertook the reform of the beggar system. An officer was appointed to take charge of this work. Another important reform undertaken by the Maharaja was the rationing of rice in the Kashmir Valley, owing to its extreme inaccessibility and the undoable difficulties of weighty transport, was always liable to sudden famines, owing to either failure of the rice crops or the cornering of the grain market. In order to meet this situation, the Maharaja established a rigid monopoly of rice and had it sold at a fixed price to the people. And why should people have to hear a loud call from an Arabian religion that implies that they are worshiping false gods? Why would they take kindly to this, especially when they don't have to? People around the world say it's annoying, especially when you don't believe in it. Oh, boo hoo! Your fellow map worshippers aren't allowed to kill a sentient being with thoughts and emotions. This is the problem when you start at a point that makes it look like the black stone kissers are helpless victims, Mr. Gaddafi. You know, you seem to be more like the Zionists you criticize than you think. In the pre Islamic era of this region, cow slaughter was extremely taboo, yet still never warranted a death penalty, according to more ancient scriptures like Manu Dharma, chapter 11, verses 109 to 117, which rather call for 3 months of fasting, community service, and public humiliation. Meanwhile, Islamic jurisprudence has always had a principle of applying the death penalty for actions that are seen as fundamental rights in our Western societies. Why should he have placed people in power who believe that God commands them to violently subjugate people like him? And you leave out how Mohammedan invaders, Sikandar Butshy Khan, imposed taxes on non-Mohammedans, forced conversions to Mohammedanism, and earned the title Butshy Khan for destroying idols. And of course, persecutions of Shias, Shafis, and Sufis also continued under the Mohammedan Suri kings until they were stopped by locals. All in all, the dictatorships of Sikandar Butshy Khan, Aurangzeb, and Ahmed Shah Durrani account for 100 years of brutal genocide for non-Mohammedans. After local rebel Mal's defeat, the Durrani engaged in the oppression of the remaining Astika population through forced conversions, killings, and forced labor. Of course, freedom of speech was curtailed, as well as heavy taxes being levied on all Kashmiris. During the Durrani rule in Kashmir, income from the region constituted a large part of the Durrani Empire. Kashmir's modern history begins with Ranjit Singh of the Sikh Panth, who became a soldier at 12 and in 1799 at age 19 was made Lahore's governor by Kabul's Zaman Shah. 3 years later, he made himself master of Amritsar and in 1806 crossed the river Sutlej and took Ludhiana. He created a fine Sikh infantry and cavalry under former officers of Napoleon, and with 80,000 trained men and 500 guns, took Multan and Peshawar. defeated the Pashtuns and overran Kashmir in 1819. The cruel rule of the Pashtuns ended to the great relief of Kashmir's inhabitants. The British Governor-General Minto, ancestor of the later Viceroy, seeing advantage in the Sikhs staying north of the Sutlej, sent Charles Metcalfe, a clever young civilian, to persuade the Khalsa. In 1809, Ranjit Singh and the British, in the First Treaty of Amritsar, agreed to establish perpetual amity. The British would have no concern north of the Sutlej, and Ranjit Singh would keep only minor personnel south of it. In 1834 and 1838, Ranjit Singh was struck by paralysis and died in 1839, leaving no competent heir. The Sikh polity collapsed, their power exploded, disappearing in fierce but fast flames. It was a period of storm and anarchy in which assassination was the rule, and the legitimate line of his son and grandson Kharak Singh and now Nihal Singh was quickly extinguished.
The Islamic call to prayer does sound like somebody's getting tortured. Very often it does sound like that, and it's very annoying when you don't believe in it anymore and you live in a Muslim country. It's so annoying. So annoying. So badly annoying.
These scumbags did not choose to join the Gandhian Republic. Their kingdoms were violently liberated, culminating in their respective surrenders. In the case of Junagadh specifically, however, upon the advice of Diwan Bhutto, on 15th August 1947, the Nawab announced that Junagadh had acceded to Porkistan. On 16th September, the government of Porkistan accepted the extension. I myself am the great-grandson of victims of Hyderabadi Islamic death squads known as Razakaron. My great-grandmother hid in a well with my infant grandfather when her village was attacked and her husband killed. Non-Muslims were economically disenfranchised in Hyderabad state. Hence, there was a peasant revolt. The Maharaja decided to liquidate the Muslims. This is another fallacious claim by a dear Islamo gimp. In the chaos of the violence, Maharaja Hari Singh Jamwal, being frazzled, decided to impose martial law and arrest anybody they were suspicious of. This included non-black stone kissers, such as Premnath Bazaz, previously mentioned. Listen, you Mlecha Pakora, your mispronunciation is a bigger testament to this garbage you call a video. Just a LARP trying to sound like you know things when you don't. And you know why you're trying to do this? Because you lack the authenticity to honestly represent the situation. So let me help you. But Jagmohan, Punjab, Rashtriya. And don't let me catch you doing this again, boy. Your master is talking to you. Do you hear me? I'm not sure why you're celebrating the murder of Tikalal Taplu. He never held any legislative position and was also victimized by the election rigging, as he was a member of the then opposition party BJP, which Mr. Islamofascist here failed to identify as a truly moderate, secular, conservative, nationalistic force trying to navigate the difficult terrain of dharmic aspirations, as well as seeing that matters don't get out of hand. Liberals, soy boys like you, should be thanking the BJP instead of abusing them. You are completely wrong here. You have the whole video as a point that people in the Indus River Basin, i.e. India, were rebelling against the Gandhian Republic. A complete lie. Or maybe you're just even trying to perpetuate a colonial legacy, as the sick person you are. It is ridiculous you are going to bring up the 1990 Galkadal massacre by Gandhian forces while completely glossing over the genocide of Kashmiri Pundits. And of course the CRPF are not going to behave with much sympathy, considering how evil the general map-worshipping civilians, quote-unquote civilians, were towards Kashmiri Astika civilians. The local organization of Dharmans in Kashmir, Kashmir Pandit Sangharsh Samiti, KPSS, after carrying out a survey in 2008 and 2009, said that 399 Sanatana Dharmans were killed by insurgents from 1990 to 2011, with 75% of them being killed during the first year of the Kashmiri insurgency, and that during the last 20 years, about 650 Kashmiri Astikas, Sanatana Dharmans, have been killed in the valley. For instance, on July 10th, 2017, the first Monday of the month of Shravana, 8 Sanatani civilian pilgrims on the way from Amarnath Temple in Kashmir Valley, in the Gandhian state of Jammu and Kashmir were killed in a terror attack by armed Islamists. The pilgrims mostly belong to the state of Gujarat. Very religious people do not see eye to eye with any form the government has taken in the past century or so to target these families with their small children trying to practice their religion betrays another motive, doesn't it? And okay, let's say you hate us, oppressed people too much to care, Mr. Islamo-fascist pink pig. Do you not care about your own people that were murdered by Harkat ul-Ansar? The comparison between Hamas and Hizbul Mujahideen is ridiculous because they never received support from the Gandhian Republic for some divide and rule policy. They only became popular due to the practice of black stone kissing / map worshipping in the area. How is JKLF the more liberal organization? JKLF was the primary participant in the Kashmiri Pandit genocide, while Hizbul Mujahideen allows unemployed Astikas, local ones, into their ranks, despite the Quran's ban against this in Surah 3, verse 28, from allying with non-Muslims. Perhaps Islamists that mask themselves as liberals like yourself are perhaps the ones people should worry about more. A lot more. Commenting on the extrajudicial nature of Gandhian policy is ridiculous coming from a Mohammedan neo-colonizer like yourself. The defense of Hamas by people like you was that you're going to make people into animals and shouldn't wonder why they're not going to follow your civility. Do you not realize if you push people far enough, you're not going to like what you find? Just saying radicalized people are incredibly difficult to deal with is not a call for genocide. It's a shame I have to explain this to you. And just to top it all off, here he reveals his true self. Instead of translating Jaish-e-Mohammed as Army of Muhammad, he translates it as Army of the Prophet. And you know who your prophet was? A thief, epileptic patient, weirdo, slave owner, and in the words of his own uncle, Abu Lahab, a liar, just like you. And of course, he ends the video with a desperate plug of himself, only showing how much of a superficial, money-hungry rat colonizer he is. Too much of a coward to risk demonetization